Hello and welcome to the fourth episode of the Everything Hoops podcast. On this episode, I interview Glen Willis, who is an Atlanta Hawks podcaster and is a huge fan of the Atlanta Hawks. Great basketball conversation about the Atlanta Hawks. Then I get to my top 10 plays of the week, and I finish it off with my shout out of the week. I hope you enjoy this episode. Okay, Glenn, so your Hawks are 4-2 to start the regular season when this is being recorded. What has impressed you most about the Hawks start this season?
Just how quickly they've adapted to the changes that Quin has put into place. A lot of changes on both ends of the court. Defensively, they're getting their big man up to the level of the screen as their kind of base scheme. That's quite different from what they've been doing the last few years under Nate. First couple of games, it was pretty inconsistent execution, and that cost them games. I think Hawks fans would have thought the Hawks should have won both of those games, just kind of looking at Charlotte being perceived as a lesser team, New York maybe being a somewhat equal team, but playing at home, And then on offense, just, a lot more 5-out, action, especially when Jalen and or Okongwu are on the floor. That's creating different angles, more ball movement. Quin is challenging them to attack more quickly, which has not always been what, say, Hunter has done, and at times what Dejounte has done. And so, I thought this would take somewhere between 10 to 20 games to kind of for them to really settle in. But these last four games have settled in really nicely on both ends. They still, in my mind, they've now played, I would say, 2 complete games, where they've kind of been pretty good from start to finish, that being the Milwaukee game and then this Pelicans game. And so they still have an opportunity to play more consistently across all 4 quarters of the game. But the new stuff is they're settling into that more quickly than I expected.
I definitely agree with you because the Timberwolves game, they struggled in the first half. And then the Wizards game, it was good until the fourth quarter, where the Wizards went 17 for 23 and then 15 for 17 on their last 17 shots. I want to ask you about coaching because it's hard as fans to understand like how much coaching matters. But when you see Quin and what happened with Nate Mcmillan last year, can you talk about the difference between those two coaches?
Yeah, I think, the Hawks are still a relatively young team. That they're not as young as they were 3 years ago, but they're still a relatively young team. And Nate's a solid coach. He kind of understands the basics. He believes in the fundamentals being the things that are going to be 80 to 90% of what determines whether you're successful or not, and really kind of preaches getting the fundamentals right. But I think younger players just have a different experience kind of coming up through AAU, 1 or 2 years of college, whatever the number might be for any individual player. And even though Quin isn't as young maybe as some people think he is, he has a little bit more of kind of a modern approach that I think aligns with what players are kind of expecting these days. Nate deserves a ton of credit for how he got the Hawks to the conference finals after taking over that year, but from that point on, he wasn't able to move them up a level. In fact, they never got back to that level right under him. So I think Quin is just integrating more kind of modern techniques. He's challenging them, and the Hawks to me just look like a team that believes in the coaching they're getting this season. There's a lot of buy-in. The chemistry is better. And some of that tone setting comes from the coach. So it's coaching is a hard thing to assess in terms of how much weight should we give it, especially when evaluating success or failure or inconsistent results. Coaching matters for sure. Talent matters more, I think. But I think if players don't believe in or don't fully believe in the coaching they're getting, I think it's hard to kind of get things to click consistently. We're only 6 games in, but the chemistry is good, and the players, to each individual one, look like they're kind of at the moment buying into what Quin is asking them to do, and that I think that's a good sign early in the season. They'll have adversity like any team does as the season goes through, and that'll be a different way to evaluate how they navigate that as a team, coaches plus players. But right now, it looks like buy-in is in a good place, and chemistry, as the young people say, vibe is good. And all of that. So I think in this sense, it's been, they largely brought back the same roster. And so I think the improvement that they hope to lean on is kind of the coaching improvement, being that Quin kind of more aligns with I think what the roster talent is able to kind of generate from his approach, where say Nate's was maybe not the best one for this group.
I do agree with the chemistry of this group. It does seem better. I want to talk about individual players, starting with Dejounte Murray.
Oh, my goodness. 10 seconds to go in the quarter. Let me tell you, they're not making them shots like they were making in the first half. Murray. Heat check.
Oh, my goodness.
Heat check.
I think that he's had a better season this year, but not because of stats, because his stats are pretty similar. Can you talk about how Dejounte has looked to start this season compared to last year?
Yeah, so I think, and to hear him talk about it, even the things he emphasizes in the few opportunities we've had to kind of hear him speak and press availability, post game, what have you, he wants to be a leader on defense, and that's showing up. I think he looks more committed. He's working harder at screen navigation. He's generating more ball pressure. He's last year he was kind of I don't know. I think of the one guy we kind of really think of as a kind of a gambler or risk taker, a guy trying to generate steals, is like Russell Westbrook, right? And last year it was like he really tilted heavily towards trying to be that kind of defender, generating value through disruption, turnover creation, etc. This year he's doing kind of the basic stuff better connectivity, better communication. His spacing as a defender when he's one off the ball, one away from the ball is better. And so it just kind of, I call it the mundane parts of playing defense. He's better at that. But in addition to that, the ball pressure is great. Screen navigation has been great. And so he's a more complete defender this year, giving them solid team stuff and still picking his spots a little bit more selectively, a little bit more wisely around when he can kind of look at an opportunity to be disruptive and create turnovers. He's been a big part of their uptick in transition productivity, right? And on offense, he's being more decisive, right? Last year, the last couple of years, Nate really talked all the time about attack the mismatch, and it's not that Quin doesn't think that that's ever the right thing to do, but he really wants to kind of attack as a team. When you have a defense kind of like last night, the Pelicans were, blitzing Trey a lot early, and early it was 1-5 pick and roll. But later in the game, they even tried to do some 1-4 blitzing with Dyson Daniels, for example. And so Quin wants them to attack an over leveraged or over committed defense quickly. And I thought that would be one of the tougher areas for Dejounte, because I thought it's, from what we saw last year, a little bit counter instinctual. He likes to be a little deliberate, kind of see how the defense reacts to the ball moving to him. But so far, he's just going, and that's getting him a lot of kind of opportunities to get to the rim. It's generating more rim pressure. And so for me, if I look at a person who's like adapted most impressively, from an individual standpoint to what Quin's asking him to do, I would highlight him, and I think it makes total sense why you led with him as a player to kind of dig in here to first.
Can you quickly talk about the Hawks' young talent, Jalen Johnson, who has had a great start to the season, Onyeka, and DeAndre Hunter, who has had a good start to the season. He didn't play good against the Pelicans yesterday because he barely played with the pinky. Respect to him for coming back in the game, but DeAndre Hunter has been good to start the season. Can you quickly talk about those three players?
Yeah, I think Jalen is the one that you hear most frequently about from Hawks fans. Hawks fans are super excited about him, and understandably so, right? He's shown a lot. It's interesting because there's a pretty big difference on what they get at the four defensively this year, right? John Collins being a guy who also logged a lot of minutes at center, so he got a lot of reps defending in the pick and roll, right? But neither Jalen. Jalen played, I don't know how many games in College Park his first year, maybe some a little bit second year, but he played a lot of five there, but it was a very different kind of scheme, right? But in terms of actual NBA reps, like Bay's never gotten any reps at the five. Hunter's maybe gotten one or two in a switch scenario. And Jalen hasn't done that all NBA. So when like Charlotte was running 1-4, heavy 1-4 pick and roll in the first game, exactly with PJ. Like the Hawks had guys who had never really had reps defending that. So it's interesting, but what Jalen has start Jalen. What he's unlocked on offense with his ability to push the ball in transition. He's a guy that, he's being empowered to grab and go on a defensive rebound and push it. Trey's always been a guy who's come to get the ball and kind of help take care of the ball and get the offense. And you'll hear Trey, like if you listen to the audio up loud on the TV, he's like, go Jay, go. As soon as Jalen gets rebound, Trey's encouraging him to attack and transition. And then like last night, I thought the adjustment that really turned the game, the Hawks were down 10-ish for a good chunk of like the second quarter, was getting into the Trey and Jalen pick and roll and using Jalen's short roll skills, his ability to slash and attack the basket or pass the ball. And there were a few times where Jalen just diving through the paint caused 2 or 3 defenders to kind of collapse in there and create really easy shots. Like Onyeka got one of his, corner threes on that action. Clint got a couple of easy shots at the rim on that action. And so Jalen's versatility, the shot looks like it's improving. He's more confident. He's more decisive. He's not as hesitant as he was last year. So, I mean, if you talk about a guy who's like, you try to figure out, okay, what is this player's ceiling? It's actually hard, I think, to kind of figure out what could he become, because he's, in his natural state, he's kind of a facilitator, a passer, a supplemental guy. And I think you can tell, like, all of his teammates are like, Jalen, freaking attack just go. Like, these guys can't stop you. And you watch him play and you kind of feel like you're watching a guy that's like, oh, I am this good. Oh, I can do all these things. And it's kind of taking his teammates, maybe his coaching staff too, to say, go attack, man. You're huge. You're fast. You got a great hand, And so it's a lot of fun to kind of watch him and where he'll be by the end of the year. It's really hard to assess, but he's getting all the encouragement and the empowerment that a player of his potential needs at this point in time. And I think that's exciting.
Yeah, I agree. He's very talented, athletic, and like you said, what he does in the short roll with his playmaking, I think that complements Trae Young really well. Before I let you go, and once again, thank you for doing this, I want to get your reaction for the Hawks in-season tournament. There's some good teams in your group, the Pacers, the Cavs, the Sixers, and the Pistons. What are you expecting from the Hawks in this tournament?
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see that, because even like the last year, like the Hawks really struggled with the Pacers' pace, right? No pun intended there, obviously, but Pacers play super fast. They play 5 out almost exclusively, and the Hawks have just struggled. Like, and even like this season, the moments when they've struggled on defense has been when opposing offenses have spread them out, and the Hawks just haven't been as solid containing. They're not as strong at the point of attack when they're really spread out, right? And so I think that's a tough matchup for them, and so that'll be interesting. Philly, I think we're all kind of seeing, okay, now after this Harden trade, how are they settling in? Is Maxey going to have this giant role now? And if so, is he ready for that? So that's an interesting kind of thing to keep an eye on. I think Capella is a good guy to, even though Hawks fans want to see as much of Okongwu as they can right now, Capella still has a ton of value, especially in a matchup like that. And then Cleveland, I think the Hawks and Cleveland are one of the most interesting, I guess we might say low key, because like I think casual fans aren't racing to turn on League Pass or whatever and watch a Cavs versus Hawks game necessarily, but like they're both like play through their backcourts, really really good backcourts. And are good defensively at the 5 and stuff. And I think they're a super interesting matchup. So in terms of what my expectations are, for me, Daniel, I'm watching like, when is the league going to kind of respond to this new stuff the Hawks are running and start to kind of build a plan for this new stuff? How quickly can the league kind of catch up to that? And we'll see, right? It's hard in an NBA schedule when you're playing on average 3 games a week. Maybe you have 1 day in between games as the average. 2 is a kind of a really, really nice to have if that happens. And so it'd be interesting to me to see if the Hawks continue kind of moving Bey and Jalen in and out of the starting lineup. I think in some ways that's smart, because it's kind of a moving target for the opposing team to kind of try to plan for, right? And then, when we'll close with either 4 or either 5, depending on the situation. And so I think the Hawks are, the way they're playing right now sets them up to do well in the play-in rounds. Things are going well right now, but Philly's a good team. Cleveland's a good team. The Pacers create really unique challenges. And, in Detroit, they got some young talent that if they put it together on a given night, they could be dangerous. So I think it'll be interesting to see how this goes.
Yeah, but I think it's important for the Hawks to not underestimate their competition, especially like the Pistons, because the Pistons are athletic, they're super strong, and like you said, that young talent. So you can't take them for granted, for sure. Once again, thank you for doing this, Glenn. I really appreciate the time, and hopefully your Falcons win.
Yeah, I'm sure I'll be. I do this thing where I kind of watch with my brothers and we group text during the game. So it's a little bit for me on the West Coast Sunday morning ritual. Appreciate that. We shall see. But no, appreciate you having me on and enjoy following you on Twitter and happy to support your work and appreciate the conversation this morning.
That was a great basketball conversation with Glen Willis. He knows a lot about basketball. He watches the Hawks every single day and he rewatches every single Hawks game. So, amazing conversation. Anyways, moving on to the top 10 plays of the week. This is my personal list.
10.
I have Keldon Johnson's game winner against the Phoenix Suns, where he stole the ball from Kevin Durant and finished it off with a nice contested layup.
6.8 to go. You might want to call a timeout to advance it. Oh, Johnson takes it from him. Johnson hangs. Yes! And the Spurs have the lead. What did I just witness here?
9.
I have Shaedon Sharpe's huge block against the Memphis Grizzlies that sent the game into overtime.
This is Smart. Juggled out to Kennard. Blocked by Sharpe. Closing ground. Extra basketball in Portland as Sharpe got to it in time.
8.
I have Victor Wembanyama's pull-up three against the Phoenix Suns to end the first half.
Wembanyama step into a three. Victor Wembanyama ending the half in style.
7.
Jalen Suggs nutmegging D'Angelo Russell and then passing it to Joe Ingles for a wide-open three.
Suggs out hustles Davis for the rebound. Dribble between the legs of Russell. 3-on-3. Ingles lets it fly. Drills it.
6.
I got Zion Williamson's dunk against the Atlanta Hawks.
Take your time. Oh, man. On the window.
5.
I have Luka's incredible behind-the-back pass to Grant Williams for an open three.
He's been rebounding like a demon again. Leads the break after the rebound. Throws it behind the back to Williams in the corner. And he hits the three.
4.
I have Victor Wembanyama's dunk over Eubanks.
Guarding Wembanyama one-on-one. Shot clock is off. Wembanyama goes right by Durant. Oh! Wemby! With the left hand!
3.
I have Clay's game winner against Sacramento because those games are always competitive.
No timeout. Everyone running to Curry. There's three Kings there. Gets it to Draymond down to 5. Klay Thompson at 3. Klay for the win. Good! I told you. Klay Thompson is still out there. If you want to take step away.
2.
I have Tyrese Halliburton hitting a huge step-back jumper over Jared Allen in the Pacers' first in-season tournament game.
On the next possession, 7 to shoot. Halliburton. Gotta go to work. Here's a three. Tyrese. Got it!
Yeah, you got to go to work.
1.
I have Steph Curry's game winner against the OKC Thunder in the first in-season tournament game.
Steph gets moving at 5. Dort, a great defender at 3. Curry sidestep. Curry drive. Curry flip. Curry good! With 2 again.
You may disagree with some of my choices, which is fair. Anyways, moving on to the new segment, Shoutout of the Week. Shout out to the Washington Wizards for just being bad at basketball. You thought that this was going to be a good shout out? I gotta change it up a little bit. The Washington Wizards are 1-4 in their first 5 games. This is being recorded before their game against the 76ers. So if they win that game, then congratulations. They better not act like that they are because they won their second game of the season. In all seriousness, the Wizards are fine. They're a young team. They're rebuilding. They're supposed to be bad and lose. They've been competitive the last couple of games. Denny has looked good this year because he always does the little things like defend. He's a good passer. If the Wizards beat the Sixers, then this segment will look dumb. However, I do not think that the Wizards are going to beat the Sixers. I honestly have a better chance of getting a date with Olivia Rodrigo than the Wizards beating the Sixers. Now I want the Wizards to beat the Sixers, so let's go Wizards. Yeah, that's all I got for you for the 4th episode of the Everything Hoops podcast. Shout out to Glenn for doing the interview. His Twitter is in the description of the YouTube video. And
bye, Felicia.